Good morning. I am not Suzanne Hall Fritch. I am Margaret Henderson, and I've been a member here for not quite 5 years, 4.5. The welcome this morning. We, as the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury, have been gathering together here for over 200 years now. And as we are working to build a more just world outside our walls, we want to acknowledge that our building sits on the land of the Paugussett people. We're glad that you're here this morning because you are an essential part of our service today. Whether today is your first time here or your 10th or your 100th, we are stronger because you are with us. If you're new to our community and joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourself and where you're connecting from in the chat box as you're comfortable. At the end of today's service, you'll have a chance to join a breakout group for individual connections and deeper check-ins. If you're new and here in person, please fill out a guest card at the table near the exit before you leave today. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. You can do that.
Good morning. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to open your program and look at the announcements today. We are so excited. Next Sunday, join Reverend Tony Lorenzen for his first Sunday in our pulpit. And he'll be here on August 20th. We'll be holding a Q&A session, coffee hour, so you can get to know him better. So you can bring a sandwich and a snack to share. We'll have beverages, iced tea, lemonade, etc. available, and we'll all get to meet Reverend Tony. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. You're going to be very excited and happy to meet him. So if you could just take a moment now and bid good morning to our friends here in the hall and online. Okay. Okay. Let us all direct our attention to the screen for today's song of welcome.
ancestors. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, ancestors. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Okay, if you would like, please join us for the Chalice Lightning Affirmation. The words are on your screen. Love is the spirit of this congregation. And now, if you would like to put your UUs in the air as we recite our children's affirmation. We are Unitarian Universalist. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We help for the earth and each other.
I just want to introduce real quickly. Here we go. I just want to introduce real quickly the story for today. The program has a misprint. It says Mean Mike. The title is Big Mean Mike. And I really like the video here read by Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich. Go ahead, Barb.
Mean Mike. Big Mean Mike was the biggest, toughest dog in the whole neighborhood. He had a big mean bark and big sharp teeth. He wore a big black collar with gleaming silver spikes, and his claws were big and mean and very, very pointy. Best of all, he had a big mean car that he liked to drive around the big mean streets. It made a big mean sound wherever he revved the engine. "Here comes Big Mean Mike," the other dogs would say. "He's the biggest, toughest dog in the whole neighborhood." Everyone knew how big and tough. Mean Mike. Big Mean Mike was the biggest, toughest dog in the whole neighborhood. He had a big mean bark and big sharp teeth. He wore a big black collar with gleaming silver spikes, and his claws were big and mean and very, very pointy. Best of all, he had a big mean car that he liked to drive around the big mean streets. It made a big mean sound wherever he revved the engine. "Here comes Big Mean Mike," the other dogs would say. "He's the biggest, toughest dog in the whole neighborhood." Everyone knew how big and tough he was, and that was just the way Mike liked it. One Tuesday, Mike decided to buy a new pair of combat boots. He liked the way they made his feet look extra big and mean. He came out of the store and admired his big, shiny car. Then he opened up the big, wide trunk. And there, Next to the big, tough spare tire was a tiny, fuzzy bunny. "Hey," said Mike, "how'd you get in there?" The tiny, fuzzy bunny blinked up at him sleepily. It was very cute. Mike picked up the bunny and quickly set it down on the sidewalk. Big, mean dogs and tiny, cute bunnies did not go together. He peeled out and sped away, revving his engine a few extra times for good measure. On Wednesday, Mike got in his car to drive to the gym. He opened up the glove compartment to get out his gym pass. But when he reached inside for the shiny plastic card, he felt something else instead. Something soft. Something cuddly. He leaned over to peer inside. The tiny fuzzy bunny was back, and this time it had brought a friend. "Hey, I told you to get out," Mike barked at the first bunny, pointed at the second bunny. "That goes for you too." Mike scooped up both bunnies, hoping that no one was looking. He put them down outside the car. He felt their little eyes watching him as he drove away. On Thursday, there were 3 tiny fuzzy bunnies sitting on the hood. "Get off my car, you bunnies!" Mike shouted. "What if someone sees you up there?" The bunnies did not get off. They looked at him and wiggled their cute little noses. Mike picked them up one by one and put them on the ground. Then he spelled it out for them. "Big tough dogs do not hang around with tiny fuzzy bunnies, okay? So beat it, scram, and don't come back." Mike found excuses not to use his car for the next few days. The next weekend, Mike had a ticket to the Monster Truck Show. He'd been looking forward to it for months. Monster trucks were big and mean, just like him. The show was in the next town over. Too far to walk. Mike went out to his car. He looked carefully under the hood. He checked the trunk. Then he peeked inside the glove compartment. "Heh," said Mike. "Nothing to worry about after all." When he got to the stadium, the parking lot was full of big, mean dogs getting out of their own big, mean cars. None of them were as big and mean as Mike, of course, but some came pretty close. Mike turned off the ignition. The key slipped from his grasp and landed on the floor. A pair of tiny white paws reached out from under the seat and picked them up. "Ah!" cried Mike. He stared in dismay as 4 tiny fuzzy bunnies hopped up onto the seat. They twitched their soft bunny ears and blinked their cute little eyes. "No more bunnies!" Mike yelled. "Get out of my car!" The bunnies just sat there, looking at him. "Fine," Mike growled. "Stay in there. I'm not missing the show because of you." He snatched up his keys and slammed the door. The bunnies gazed up at him with their sweet little fuzzy faces. "Gosh, you guys are cute," Mike said. Then he looked around. "I mean, I hate cute. Grr, I'm Big Mean Mike." He started to walk away. Then he stopped and looked around again. A parking lot full of big, mean dogs was not a very good place for little bunnies. He couldn't leave them there alone. It wouldn't be safe. "Grr," Mike growled. He had no choice. "All right, bunnies," he said. "You can come with me, but I don't want the other dogs to see you." Got his gym bag out of the trunk. "Hop in here and be quick about it." The bunnies hopped into the bag. Mike hurried inside and found his seat. The Monster Truck Show was just starting. It was awesome. Mike felt his gym bag moving on the seat beside him. The bunnies were sticking their little heads out, peering around with bright, excited eyes. "All right," Mike whispered. "You can watch. Just try not to let anyone see you." One by one, the bunnies climbed out onto Mike's lap. They nibbled pieces of his popcorn. They bounced in excitement whenever a big mean truck cleared a jump, or a little car got crunched under big tough tires. Mike couldn't bring himself to make them go back in the bag. They were having such a good time. And so was he. It's kind of fun to have someone to watch the show with. Even better to have several someones, even if they were tiny, fuzzy bunnies. When the show was over, Mike noticed a group of big, tough dogs waiting for him at the end of the aisle. Got some new little friends there, Mike? One dog asked.
Didn't figure you for the cute and cuddly type,
Said another. Guess you're not so big and mean after all, the third dog barked. Soon all the dogs were laughing and pointing. Mike didn't know what to do. This was terrible. His image was ruined.
Then one of the bunnies leaned forward and made a tiny, growly sound. Grrr. The other bunnies all joined in. Mike looked down at them.
Slowly, he smiled a big, mean smile. Then he looked back at the other dogs. You know what? Mike told them. I don't care what you think. I'm Big Mean Mike. I can hang out with whoever I want. I like these bunnies. They know how to have a good time. And they're adorable. Any of you got a problem with that? The other dogs all took a step back. No problem here, the first dog said. Yeah, we were just kidding around, said the second dog. Good, said Mike. Now get out of my way. My friends and I are going home. From that day on, Big Mean Mike went back to driving around the big mean streets in his big mean car. He still did everything in his own big mean way. And everywhere he went, 4 tiny fuzzy bunnies went with him. And that was just the way Mike liked it. The end.
Join me, please, as we sing This Little Light of Mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Now it is time to share our personal milestones, those joys lifting us up and sorrows weighing us down. The recording is stopped during this time, so you may share freely. If you are online, please type in the chat for Margaret to read aloud.
Radical inclusion. Radical inclusion. Can you guys hear me okay? Good. Radical inclusion means setting a conscious intention to accept a stranger into your heart, even though they may have qualities that tempt you to hold them at a distance. This distancing comes from judgment, often ill-informed judgment, and the opposite of judgment is wonder, curiosity. In her book, See No Stranger, Sikh activist Valerie Kaur says, seeing no stranger begins in wonder. It is to look upon the face of anyone and choose to say, you are a part of me I do not yet know. Wonder is the wellspring for love, she continues. Who we wonder about determines whose stories we hear and whose joy and pain we share. How do we learn to accept everyone, to see no stranger? Learn to recognize your hidden assumptions and expectations. When someone comes from a different socioeconomic class than you, or has a lot less education than you, or holds radically different beliefs about government and politics, like maybe Big Mean Mike, this might lead you to draw conclusions based on your own experience in the world. But other people's different life experiences may have led them to different conclusions, different beliefs, a different truth. Many times we almost instinctively presume to know why someone says something. Don't do that. Be curious instead. Certainty leads to one answer, but when we come from a place of curiosity, we get lots of possible answers. So stay curious. Other ways of finding common humanity with a stranger include adopt an attitude of meekness and humility. Meet people where they are. Don't lead the conversation. Don't ask questions that set the agenda for what's going to be discussed. Slow down. Listen more. Be supportive. Withhold judgment and seek context. I think Mike and the bunnies did a good job of that. You'll find that this frame of reference will give you more opportunities to get to know and appreciate people who are different from you. And at this point, I want to demonstrate a slide that I found upstairs in the cottage house in the youth group's meeting room. It says, "We will pause and explore when we observe behavior that causes harm." Just one illustration of this kind of technique of slowing down and seeking context. More advice along these lines. Be less sure of what you think and believe and of what you perceive. I have a story to illustrate this. The author of the gun control book, Don't Shoot, David M. Kennedy, tells about the time he mistakenly tackled a colleague at a formal reception. They were in a fancy hotel courtyard with many floors of balconies up above them, sitting there sipping their drinks, standing there, I guess, when suddenly a red laser dot appeared on his friend's forehead. Realizing that a sharpshooter must be targeting him, David reflexively shoved him out of the way, willing to take the bullet himself. It turned out it was just kids playing with a laser pointer on one of the balconies. Yeah, be less sure of what you perceive. One other thing this story shows is that surviving trauma changes the way one views the world, often in ways that other people may find off-putting or even offensive. Trauma experts advise us when meeting a stranger to wonder not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you in your past. We know intellectually that we are all works in progress, that we're all always struggling to learn how to be human. Yet our constant challenge is to keep reminding ourselves that we are in community with people who are not like us, but who are still always worthy of love. Jesus was good at this. He offered hope, dignity, and affection to all kinds of social outcasts. His ministry of inclusion, or rather his ministry against exclusion, rolled back boundaries between people, deconstructing categories. Because he recognized that these barriers and categories, along with their value judgments, are illusions, mistaken perceptions about the distance between us. Of course, his understanding had been sharpened by spending 30 days in the desert alone, but the Buddha understood this too, that the joy of creating beloved community, the learning and the spiritual growth that come from each new encounter with someone who is a part of you that you do not yet know, can be so fulfilling that one need not fear the otherness of the stranger. As the saying goes, a ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. Safety, security, and mere survival are not in themselves meaningful goals. I'll come back to safety, security, and survival. I'd like to talk about power because I think our society tries too hard to ignore power dynamics to our peril. They don't fit with the liberty and equality that we love so much to talk about. Power can be defined as the ability to influence and make decisions that impact others. This power, or the fear of it, like other social constructs we're considering today, has a huge influence on our actions, whether we like it or not. In her book, I'm Still Here, the Black author and expert on inclusion, Austin Channing Brown, talks about the terror she felt when she was almost asked in class as a girl to represent the opinions of all Black people. Quote, "It felt too risky. I folded myself into my chair. It is often expected," she continues, "that Black students will have no problem acting as the race experts for their classrooms. Eventually, though, we begin to question whether we'll be safe when the subject comes up." End quote. This, in addition, of course, to the fallacy of thinking that one person can represent the beliefs of an entire race. This story illustrates the immense role of power dynamics in human interactions in the following way. Even when the more powerful party, the teacher, tries to reverse the power roles by handing the reins over to this girl, supposedly an expert, so she has the opportunity to run the class for a minute, the student knows that ultimately she does not have the power, that the system is set up to ensure that the power resides permanently with the teacher. Privilege is not quite the same as power. Privilege is the advantages or benefits that we receive because of social groups we are perceived or assumed to be a part of. Let me say that again. Because of the social groups that other people perceive or assume that we're part of, we derive, could be good or bad, often benefits. It's one of the problems with assumptions, right? What's more, unfortunately, this privilege, these advantages, often result from systematic targeting and or marginalization of another social group. We may not have been there for it, we may not have been part of it, but it happened. And we're deriving the benefits from it. We can't change that. We can't stop that from happening. I also want to say a bit about intersectionality, a term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. She has a great TED Talk on intersectionality. This is the belief that for our social justice movements to be effective, they must consider all the intersections of identity, privilege, and oppression that people face in their day-to-day lives. These various identities can combine in different ways. Sometimes they stack on top of each other in additive ways, creating multiple barriers. But sometimes, like the intersection of two stripes on a plaid pattern, the two colors cancel each other out, making the intersection almost invisible. For instance, when COVID vaccines were offered free to people without insurance, all you had to do was pull your car up to the drive-through window and show your ID. Difficult to do if you don't have a car or an ID. And it's not just the barriers, it's the powerful social messages that people hear. You're other, different, you're wrong, you don't belong here. When I was in middle school, I was tall and, as I am now, quite well fed. I couldn't buy jeans in my size. My mother had to order them to fit through Sears. While I now see this as a deficiency in the types of jeans that were being manufactured at the time, then I was sure I was different, wrong, that I didn't belong. This is the problem with having workarounds in place for people with disabilities. Situations where the people experiencing barriers can just ask for assistance and the problem will be solved. For example, the theater I was at once had a sign posted by the restrooms that said, "Trans restroom available, ask at box office for key." This is why we must constantly ask ourselves, who are we setting a place at the table for? Who are we specifically saying is welcome here? Many of us now understand that people's gender identities go beyond the binary options of male and female. So what happens when sex education classes are split up by gender? Boys go to this room, girls go to that room. Where does a trans boy go? He may have been living as a boy for years, but his physical characteristics may have more in common with girls. The message he gets, he's other, wrong. He doesn't belong anyplace. And don't forget that biologically, about 1% of people are born intersex, having physical, sexual characteristics of both genders. So what we're talking about is radical embracing of people who at first glance seem different from us. It's not mere politeness, not even welcome. It's making the choice to get to know and love those who aren't like you. Like playing the violin, we can't simply decide that starting tomorrow, this is going to be something we're good at. In cases like this, the heart does not yield easily to the commands of the head. but the heart always responds to your truth, your beliefs, and understanding of how the world is. Unfortunately, these can be changed with study, discussion, and practice. But radically embracing all can be dangerous. What about safety, security, and survival? I said I was going to come back to that. Especially of this congregation and our institution, UUCD. Part of the work we have to do together is to decide what parts of our institutional identity we are willing to give up in the pursuit of inclusion and what parts need to be preserved. Hymns, the order of service, how we run our meetings, when we hold our meetings. We need multiple gatherings, multiple opportunities together where we can safely talk to each other about what messages we're sending or what messages are being received, who we're unintentionally singling out as other, different, not belonging, and about who we ourselves actually are. As we ask what our building space says about who we're setting a place at the table for, we'll be looking, among other things, at the lobby of this building, Fellowship Hall. The Board of Trustees would like to revise how we make use of the space there, both to make it easier to use and more efficient, especially in the wintertime, but also to make sure we're sending the right messages, especially to newcomers. Are young children welcome? Are those who don't know much about us welcome? Or do we convey a message of exclusion by using lots of abbreviations and unclear references? How do we view our history, including times in the past that we unintentionally excluded certain groups? What implied messages are being sent by the order of service we use and our customs and patterns and ways of being together? That you speak English and can read, for one thing. Two things. The point is, we need to discern together over time what we are willing to give up and what needs to be preserved. We each need to assess ourselves, our place, our power and privilege, and our roles. Our sixth principle says we all share the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. So we'd better get to work. I look forward to having many insightful conversations with all of you. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to all the people who contributed to this service. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes to make sure it all runs okay, and I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Join me, please, as we recite the Extinguish the Chalice. The words are on your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and challenge the Lord until we are together again. Okay, our song is
Walking in someone else's shoes, seeing it from a different view, learning to appreciate our differences for the better. So much more than our backgrounds, deeper than a hue or a pronoun. As unique as you are, you yourself are strong. Bring the change, put the work in. Let's bring the change, gotta put the work in. Let's bring the change, it's so worth it. kindness and watch how it goes. It's who we are, it's who we are. I'm trying to get the lens in focus so we can see eye to eye. I know that the grass is greener when we see the other side. Even if courage is borrowed, then there's hope for our tomorrows. And believe we're all worth it, can be the change, put the work in. We all deserve, we all have voices to be heard. It's who we are, who we are, who we are. Yeah, take some courage and a little bit of unknown, mixed with kindness and watch how it goes. It's who we are, it's who we are. Oh, so be the change, we gotta put the work in. Oh, let's be the change, put the work in. You put the work in, you gotta put the work in.
That was Autumn Nicholas. I think she's great. Unitarian Universalists are called to honor and include all who have sincerely chosen to journey with us. It requires a grounding in mutuality and multiplicity that speaks to the breadth and depth of who we already are today. This is doable. We just need to set aside our fear and choose community over and over again.